Hi everyone, my name is Upasna Luthra and I'm a verbal ability and GDPI trainer. So I have started this series for called Article Dive Live. This series is aimed at all the aspirants who prepare for some competitive exams which have, a reading comprehension aspect or an English section. Okay. So this series is going to help you amp up your language skills naturally. Okay. So what you can find in these sessions is number one, these sessions will be weekly thrice. Okay, and on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, right? And I'll be coming up with a weekly theme. So this week's theme is science. Okay. This week I'll be sharing three articles on science with you. So what the format will be that I'll be giving you the source where the article is taken from. So you can directly go to the source or you can read the PDF which I'll provide in WhatsApp group. Okay. The link to that is in the description. Okay. Now, the recommended thing to do is that you first read the article on your own, try to understand it, try to, pronounce the words, okay, search the vocabulary, and then you can attend these lives and check whether you comprehended what it actually meant. Okay. So through these sessions, what we'll be working on is number one, reading comprehension, number two, vocabulary, number three, pronunciation and British pronunciation. Okay. And number four is grammar. I'll also be pointing out some grammar structures that you need to be wary of. Okay. So that is what these series are going to be about. All right. Chaliye. So let's begin then. Okay. So this is session one. Right. How ancient texts can shed light on auroras. The theme for this week is going to be science, and the source that I've used for this article is Smithsonian Magazine, right? Chaliye. So, how ancient texts can shed light on auroras, documenting episodes of the phenomenon thousands of years ago, may help us predict damaging solar storms in the future. Now, when we read this heading and description of the article, Aurora Borealis comes to mind. है ना? Do you know about those northern lights? Beautiful green, blue, and beautiful iridescent colors, right? So those are northern lights which you can see closer to the North Pole. So auroras are really beautiful natural phenomenon. But here the description says that if we track these phenomena, we can predict damaging solar storms in the future. So let's see what the relationship between solar storm and auroras is. Okay. As you can see in this picture, it's a drawing of the aurora observed from Nagoya, Japan on September 17, 1770. Okay, so this is actually a picture which had been drawn by someone who witnessed this phenomenon in 1770. The written description also notes its intensity, as bright as a night with a full moon. Now, you can see that there's been something scribbled in a different language. Okay, it's not English, of course. So, that description on the drawing is basically of that phenomenon, that it was so bright it looked like a night with a full moon. Okay, right. So let's read. Rumors of a strange and terrifying event swept Japan in early September 1859. The sky seemed to be burning, according to one diarist. Now, if you understand how words are made, you can, immediately think about the word diary. So diarist is someone who maintains a diary, who writes diary. Okay, normal diary entries. So what this line is telling us, that in September 1859 in Japan, there was a very strange phenomenon, and it actually scared people, because when there's something new, usually people tend to be scared. Okay, so the sky seemed to be burning. उसको देख के ऐसा लग रहा था that the sky was burning, and that was written by one diarist. From Aomori Prefecture, on the northern edge of the country's main island, to Wakayama, more than 600 miles south, the sky glowed red. So, see the vast expanse of sky that was glowing red? Take around 600 miles of the area. Many assumed it was the light of distant fires, but no one could decide where they burnt. So many people thought that the light was coming from some big, huge fire in some nearby city or place. Okay. But nobody could pinpoint where that fire was coming from. Okay. Had 1,000 houses been destroyed in Minato? So was there such a big fire that 1,000 houses had been destroyed in this city, Minato? Okay. Or liquor stores at Hyogo or Nishinomiya? Okay. Or were there any fire across liquor stores at Hyogo or Nishinomiya, cities? Residents of these places assumed there had been fires elsewhere. वेयर एज जो यहाँ इन दोनों सिटीज में रहते थे रेजिडेंट्स, दे अज्यूम कि कहीं और पे फायर चल रही है. ओके, कोयासांग, गोजो, हाशिमोटो एंड इवन रशिया were all suggested as places that could be burning. So many people were speculating where the fires could be, and these were some of the names which came up, that perhaps the fire is in these places. So, this first paragraph is about a strange phenomenon that was witnessed, and it was attributed to a big fire. But we'll get to know that actually it was not a fire. Okay, let's read on. The historian of Shingu, a city 80 miles south of Kyoto in Wakayama, noted that red vapor in the northern sky had also been seen 90 years earlier in September 1770. So, a person in who was a historian in Shingu, okay, he claimed that the same red strange phenomenon in the sky was seen 90 years earlier. Okay, right? Reports during that event similarly hypothesized that the strange light was the result of faraway fires, though other unusual effects appeared too. So even during that time, it was hypothesized, or it was thought that this is because of some fires. Okay. But there were some other unusual things also which cannot be attributed to fires. One account noted that white stripes like rods appeared within intensive red vapor. So one person account here. Now see, in modern jargon, where we use technology, where we use Facebook, Instagram, okay, or other apps, we understand that account is basically like a social media account. But here, account refers to something which someone noted, or maybe wrote or spoke, right? So someone's experience here is what is meant by account, right? So one person noted that he could see white stripes like rods. So such rod-like structures in the sky, white, and then it was all covered by red vapor, which covered half the sky. And this was actually around half the sky. Some people feared the world would end. Now, of course, when someone sees such, natural phenomenon and such strange sight that half the sky is covered red with white rods, so people would get scared, right? So people thought that the world is going to end, that there's going to be some real upheaval. They dedicated divine dances and prayed to Buddha while the eerie light streamed through the sky, according to another account. Again, another account means another person noted that the eerie lights, eerie means strange, which seemed weird, strange. So those lights were, streaming around, through the sky, and people started, performing divine dances, prayers, and prayed to Buddha, the god they, followed that time. Scientists now understand that these frightening displays were auroras. Now, scientifically, when the research was conducted, now in today's time, we know that those phenomena were nothing but auroras. When seen in the northern sky, the effect is also known as the northern lights or aurora borealis. So, the same phenomenon when it is seen near the north pole, near northern skies, so that is called as aurora borealis. The phenomenon is the result of charged particles from the sun or other sun-like stars traveling down Earth's magnetic field lines and interacting with gases in our atmosphere. अब यहाँ पे थोड़ा science stuff आ गया है, and this line is also telling us what the relationship between auroras and solar storms is, है ना? Introduction में हमने वो solar storms के बारे में पढ़ा था ना, damaging solar storms. So now in this line, it's telling us what auroras are. Okay, yeah, Mohit, I'm going to explain that. So, what they are saying is that aurora is a phenomenon which results because there are some charged particles coming from sun or other stars like sun, and when those charged particles enter Earth's magnetic field, okay, they interact with the gases in our atmosphere. Okay, so we have lots of gases in atmosphere, right? When these particles interact with gas atoms or molecules, okay, so then this phenomenon of aurora is produced. Description is given further. Green and red light is given off by interaction with oxygen. So when these charged particles from sun and other stars interact with oxygen gas in our atmosphere, green and red colors are produced, green and red lights. Okay, whereas blue and purple by nitrogen. When these charged particles interact with nitrogen gas in our atmosphere, blue and purple colors are produced. Okay. Usually, these light displays are visible only at the poles, but during severe geomagnetic storms, the aurora can be seen closer to the equator. So, usually, ज़्यादातर normally these auroras can be seen near poles. Okay, but sometimes when there is a lot of bombardment of particles, take a severe geomagnetic storms, then these auroras can be seen even at lower latitudes, okay, near equator. सो लैटिट्यूड्स क्या होते थे, थोड़ा सा ज्योग्राफी रिवाइज करते हैं, बेसिक ज्योग्राफी. व्हेन वी कंसिडर अर्थ हैज अ स्फीयर, सो अगर हम उसमें सर्कल्स ड्रॉ करें, ठीक है, हॉरिजॉन्टल सर्कल्स एंड वर्टिकल सर्कल्स, राइट, वी ट्राई टू, मतलब अगर आप उस स्फीयर को एज अ केक समझो, consider it a cake and try to cut it, in sections. If you cut it in horizontal sections, so those horizontal structures will be latitudes, and if you try to cut it in vertical circles, those will be longitudes. Okay, so equator is a, the centermost latitude that we have. Although descriptions of these events from Europe and the Americas had been studied extensively, less analysis had been conducted of similar records in East Asian archives. Okay, चलो यहाँ पे पहले meaning समझते हैं, then I'll tell you something about pronunciation here as well. Okay, so इस paragraph में क्या बता रहे हैं कि when there is severe storm, then we can see these auroras closer to equator also. Okay. This expanded visibility is a key indicator of the intensity of solar activity. Okay. What this means is that when there is, intense solar activity, then only this can be visible near equator. Okay. During the 1770 and 1859 events, the lights were seen around the world and at exceptionally low latitudes. So during this 1770 and 1859, okay, जब इन years में हुए थे aurora वाले phenomenon. So in those times, we could see at very low latitudes also, instead of just the poles. Okay. So although these descriptions from Europe and Americas had been studied extensively, less analysis had been conducted of similar records in East Asian archives. So, although जो यूरोप और अमेरिका which are closer to the poles, वहाँ पे तो ये normal था to find these phenomena, okay, but it was not very much in uh, the Asian continent, right? So East Asian archives में ज़्यादा information नहीं थी. Now here the pronunciation part that I was talking about was the pronunciation of this word record. Now record, if it is used as a verb that not much was recorded, then we will pronounce it as record, record. Okay. If it is used as a noun, जैसे कि यहाँ पे है, then it will be pronounced as record. Okay. So here it will be record. This is British pronunciation once again. Okay. American is slightly different. Right. Now, an interdisciplinary team of Japanese researchers has been compiling and studying these records, as well as identifying new ones as far back as 10,000 BCE. So, Japan में some researchers are conducting, studies, and they are also trying to compile जो previous records हैं. Okay, and those records can be as old as 10,000 BCE. Now here let's understand the you know timeline. So अगर हम history को divide करें, how the time runs is that there is right now we are in 2024. Okay, so if we have to call it with BC or CE, we will call this 2024 CE. Okay, whereas BCE was before this. So if I draw for you, let me draw. Okay, so if we consider this a timeline, okay, so we are here 2024. Okay, these are all CE years, and BCE years are this. So BC years actually run backwards. अगर आपने maths में integers का concept किया है, something similar to that. So if I say 10,000 BCE, that means वो बहुत पुराना था. Okay, if I say 100 BCE, That means it was relatively more recent than 10,000 BCE. ओके, सो जब हम BCE में ईयर्स डिनोट करना स्टार्ट करते हैं तो नॉर्मल जो टाइम चल रहा है दैट गेट्स इन्वर्टेड. The bigger the number in BCE, मतलब the older that year is. Whereas CE में, of course, जितना big number होगा, मतलब the more in future that is, right? So that's the timeline. Okay. Extending this history, they hope, will lead to better modeling of future solar activity. So वो साइंटिस्ट क्या होप कर रहे हैं कि अगर हम इस हिस्ट्री को स्टडी करें, if we study this history, it will, lead us to better understanding of future solar activity. That modeling is important now as we are approaching a period when the sun's magnetic field will be unstable and solar storms are predicted to be more frequent and intense. So, scientifically, why this research is important? Because ऐसा predict किया जा रहा है कि अब start from now on, the magnetic field of sun will be unstable. There will be more sand solar storms in terms of frequency. There will be many solar storms, and also there will be more intense. Okay. The multi-day 1859 event is the most severe solar storm observed during the modern era. So, जो 1859 में हुआ था इवेंट, दैट वाज द मोस्ट सिवियर. ओके, उसके बाद या उससे पहले कभी उतना सिवियर नहीं देखा गया सोलर स्टॉर्म. So how severe was it? It damaged telegraph cables on Earth. So it actually harmed, it damaged, destroyed telegraph cables. उस टाइम पे there was no internet and all. Ticket telegraph was common, so telegraph cables were destroyed, reportedly sparking fires at telegraph offices and shocking operators. Shocking operators means जो वहाँ पे काम कर रहे थे, the people who were working there, the operators, they got a shock, electrical shock उन्हें लगा because of this solar storm. Okay, the aurora was even visible in such low latitude places as the Bahamas and Hawaii. So Bahamas and Hawaii, which are considerably low in terms of latitude, वहाँ तक भी the aurora was visible in 1859. The damage from a solar storm of this magnitude today would have much more disastrous results. अगर उस लेवल का उतना इंटेंस सोलर स्टॉर्म आज के टाइम में हो जाए तो it will be much more disastrous because it is obvious. I gave you a hint before. Telegraph cables destroy हुए थे 1859 में. Now we have a much more electronically dependent world. We have internet and so many types of wires and cables running around the world. So अब अगर इस तरह का solar storm hit करता है, then the disaster will be on a much bigger scale. Okay, so as electronic systems have proliferated since the 19th century, this is a very good word. You can underline this word, proliferated. इस word को आप note कर सकते हैं. So suppose if you want to take away one word from today's session and you want to make it a part of your um, you know daily vocabulary or general vocabulary, you should take this word, proliferate. Okay, so proliferate means have flourished, have developed. बहुत सारे इस तरह के इलेक्ट्रॉनिक सिस्टम्स अब हो चुके हैं, आ चुके हैं. Electrical storms can short circuit the power grid, as occurred in Quebec in 1989 when millions of people were left without power in the cold of late winter. अगर इलेक्ट्रिकल स्टॉर्म्स हों तो उनसे पावर ग्रिड शॉर्ट सर्किट हो जाएगा और लाइट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी विल बी कट. ओके, देयर विल बी नो पावर. और क्यूबेक में ये हुआ था 1989 में. एंड व्हाट वाज द रिजल्ट? दैट मिलियंस ऑफ पीपल हु लिव्ड देयर, they were left without any power, and it was such a cold winter. उस टाइम पे it was a cold winter time. Jamie Matthews, an emeritus astronomer at the University of British Columbia, says that satellites, communications networks, and the power grid could all be destroyed by a storm on the scale of the 1859 event. So, chaliye, let's understand different words here. Emeritus. What is emeritus? Emeritus is basically when someone is experienced and someone has, maybe retired or stopped working there in some way. Okay, so usually it's used for professors, but here it's used for an astronomer, means someone who was an astronomer once but is not an astronomer right now, but still retains that title. Once an astronomer will always be an astronomer. Okay, so he will retain that title. So Jamie Matthews is an emeritus astronomer. He is now working at the University of British Columbia. Okay, so he says कि अगर आज के टाइम में 1859 वाला storm आ जाए, then it would actually destroy satellites, communication networks, and power grid. Okay, if it happened in the winter, you wouldn't have any power at all, and it's a long time before you get it back, he says. So what Matthews says is, अगर winter में इस तरह का कुछ हो, that solar storm 1859 like event, तो आपकी पूरी electricity चली जाएगी. There will be no power at all, and it will be for a long time. It will take a very long time. ऐसा नहीं कि power cut normal लगाए 1 day 2 days. No, it will be for a very long duration. He warns of possible mass casualties due to loss of power used for heating and food refrigeration, and he says restoring the networks that provide power could take months. So, एक या दो दिन की बात नहीं है, it would take months to restore that power. Okay, and he warns of possible mass casualties. Mass मतलब कि on a large scale, बहुत सारी. So hundreds, thousands, ठीक है, even more. Casualties are deaths. So there'll be so many deaths because of loss of power, which we use for food, refrigeration, and heating. Okay, one agency has estimated that the cost of disruptions and repairs after such a severe storm could reach $2 trillion. So, how much the cost would be to repair such storm, the destruction caused by such storm? It will be $2 trillion. Okay. Although we now know that the world won't end when the sky streams red or green light, we need proper preparation to protect the electronic infrastructure that has become necessary to supporting human life on Earth. Okay, चलिए यहाँ पे grammar structure भी I'll tell you to note, but first understand the meaning. So क्या कह रहे हैं कि although हमें ये पता चल गया है अब that the world is not going to end because of these solar storms, because of these auroras, ठीक है, it's just that sky gets colored in different hues than the normal blue, but we still need to be prepared for such event because electronically we are much more linked right now, and the infrastructure has to be protected so that it is not destroyed completely in case of a solar storm. Okay, so the grammar structure that I was talking about here was, note this line, that has become necessary to supporting human life. Usually we use for, right? But this is the correct grammar structure. The infrastructure that has become necessary to supporting human life on Earth. So it's not an incorrect structure here, it is completely correct. Okay. Matthews and others suggest creating more robust systems that have multiple backups already in place could ensure that alternates are immediately available in the event of damage or destruction. So, what Matthews and other scientists suggest, they say that if we create very robust means strong. This is also another good word that you can note if you don't already know. Robust systems, strong, which are immune to attacks. Okay, if we create such robust systems with multiple backups, okay, that could ensure that if a solar storm hits us, one system is damaged, so at least we have some alternate to it. We have some backup for it. Okay. Now, in the picture, a red and green aurora lights up the night sky over China on December 1, 2023. So, ये China का picture है from 2023, December 1. Okay, this was a red and green aurora which was seen in China. Next, this most recent chapter in the historical quest to compile evidence of past auroras started in 2014 when two Japanese graduate students were chatting at a pub near Kyoto University. So, recently जितना भी auroras पे research किया जा रहा है या the evidence that is being compiled about the past events that started in 2014, and it was actually done by two Japanese graduate students who were just talking in a pub, okay, near Kyoto University. So, who were those two graduates? Harufumi Tamazawa, an astronomer, was out for drinks with Hisashi Hayakawa, a historian who had been researching medieval transportation networks in East Asia. So, दो लोग हैं Tamazawa and Hayakawa. Tamazawa is astronomer and Hayakawa is historian. Okay. Every time I met someone who was interested in history or could read historical documents, says Tamazawa, I would ask about records of low latitude auroras. Okay, so Tamazawa says कि जब भी कोई historian मिलता था या someone interested in history, he would always ask them about low latitude auroras. कि कुछ past में क्या इन चीज़ों के कोई records हैं? Hayakawa agreed with Tamazawa that finding such records might be possible, and he was interested because the topic was close to the research he had originally hoped to pursue during his graduate work in the humanities. Now I want to ask you, what is this he referring who is this he referring to? This he is referring to Hayakawa. Okay. So Hayakawa agreed, and Hayakawa was interested because Hayakawa had originally hoped to pursue this subject during his graduation. He had wanted to study past environmental variability using historical records, but a professor advised him against it. So Hayakawa wanted to study the same thing, okay, environmental variability, that how environment changes. Okay, he wanted to use historical records for the same, but a professor at his university discouraged him. Okay, the pair dug in. What does this mean? Dug in, dig का past form है. The pair dug in मतलब Hayakawa and Tamazawa. This is the pair. These two people, they started researching more on it, going deeper in it. ठीक है. Their research enabled by a major breakthrough by another Japanese scientist in 2012. Now their study was fortified by another scientist in 2012. And who was that scientist? The physicist Fusa Miyake. And Fusa Miyake discovered that superflares appear to leave datable signatures in tree rings. कि जब भी ये super flares, solar storms, super flares देखे जाते हैं, they leave their signatures, they leave their marks in tree rings. ठीक है, डेटेबल मतलब हम डेट तक बता सकते हैं कि किस टाइम पे ये हुआ. Okay. During a space weather event, Earth is bombarded with cosmic rays, which produce radioactive isotopes, including carbon 14, when they reach the planet's atmosphere. तो अब बता रहे कि कैसे वो dateable कैसे है ना? How can we determine the date? So the way to do that is that whenever there's such event, अर्थ पर बॉम्बार्डमेंट होती है कॉस्मिक रेज की. ओके, और उससे कार्बन 14 आइसोटोप प्रोड्यूस होता है and many other radioactive isotopes. Okay, when the rays reach planet's atmosphere, trees take this in as part of the photosynthesis process. So जब trees अपना normal photosynthesis करते हैं, they take in this carbon 14. Okay, and this embeds the radioactive material in an annual timeline. और इससे वो जो कार्बन 14 है वो उस ट्री में एम्बेड हो जाता है. ठीक है, and it creates an annual timeline that we can see when this isotope entered the tree. Researchers have since identified 10 major carbon 14 spikes, now known as Miyake events, in tree ring chronologies. So, क्या researchers जो है उन्होंने ऐसे 10 10 मेजर इवेंट्स देखे हैं कि जब इस तरह से कार्बन 14 में स्पाइक दिखा, स्पाइक मीन्स इंक्रीज दिखा इन ट्रीज, ओके, और उन सबको मियाके इवेंट्स कहा गया है. The astronomer and the historian sought out observational evidence for one of these events in the historical record. So जो ऊपर बात की गई थी तामाजावा एंड हायाकावा, उन्होंने मिलके एविडेंस ढूंढने की कोशिश की फॉर दीज इवेंट्स, जो 10 इवेंट्स ऊपर मेंशन है. Hayakawa turned to the Songshi, a Chinese historical chronicle of the Song dynasty that includes a section on astronomical observations made between 960 to 1279 CE. सीई मतलब अब हम नॉर्मल उसमें आ गए हैं, अभी 2024 चल रहा है, तो ये 960 टू 1279 की बात हो रही है. ठीक है, अराउंड 1200 ईयर्स अगो. सो हायाकावा ने कहाँ से ढूंढा? ही रेफर टू द सोंगशी. इट वाज अ लाइक अ मैगजीन, क्रॉनिकल इज लाइक अ मैगजीन, ठीक है, सॉन्ग डिनेस्टी के टाइम पे, और उसमें जो भी एस्ट्रोनॉमर्स ने ऑब्जर्वेशंस किए थे, ओके, so they were mentioned in that in those issues. Earlier research had connected various descriptions of vapor, cloud, and light to the aurora. इससे पहले जो रिसर्च हुई थी उन्होंने वेपर, क्लाउड, लाइट, इस तरह के वर्ड्स यूज किए थे फॉर द फिनोमिनन ऑफ अरोरा. Reviewing and narrowing down these references turned up 193 possible references to the aurora in the Songshi. और जब इस तरह से कीवर्ड सर्च किया या सर्चिंग फॉर दीज टाइप्स ऑफ रेफरेंसेस, so they found 193 references in that magazine Songshi. In ongoing research, Hayakawa Tamazama and their frequent collaborator Hiroaki Isobe, a solar physicist, expanded the search. तो अब इनकी टीम में एक थर्ड पर्सन भी आ गया है, हिरोआकी इसोबे. ठीक है. Now they are expanding their research. They reviewed records related to the solar storms observed in the 1770 and 1859 events described above, and they plunged even further into the past. So, उन्होंने records check किए from 1770 and 1859, और उसके अलावा they went further into the past. They have since consulted ancient Babylonian astronomical reports with the help of Near Eastern scholars and uncovered possible descriptions of auroras dating back to 652 BCE. So अब उन्होंने even Babylonian reports check की हैं, okay, and they have done this with the help of Near Eastern scholars, and they've also uncovered possible descriptions dating back to 652 BC. They have widened their research to include other descriptors, including unusual rainbows or white rainbows. Now, rainbows, we know it is Vibgyor, right? Those seven colors. But now, these scientists have found some accounts of unusual rainbows also, or even white rainbows. Okay, how strange is that? Isobe explains that with the growth of literacy in Japan during the Edo period, the number of private diarists increased. So, जो लोग डायरी लिखते थे, the number of those people increased in Japan because of increase in literacy around that period. ठीक है, Edo period. However, since these observers were often unfamiliar with classical texts that had previously described the aurora, these chroniclers used a greater variety of descriptive terms to refer to the same phenomenon, which in turn provides contemporary scientists with more clues about the aurora. So now what they are saying is कि क्योंकि जो वो ईडो पीरियड में लोग थे जो डायरी लिखते थे, क्योंकि they did not know the technical terms or how experts define these aurora या क्या क्या इनकी characteristics होते हैं, तो वो तो सिर्फ अपना witness account लिखते थे उसमें auroras का, है ना. So they did not use any set terms, but they described it in their own ways. And actually that description was much more, you know, telling for these researchers. It had a variety of terms, okay, and it gave more clues about the aurora. Hayakawa and Tamazawa have both since completed their graduate studies and they have continued their interdisciplinary research. So अब वो students नहीं रहे हैं, now they are professionals, they are continuing their research. Most recently, Hayakawa, working with the independent researcher Marinus Anthony van der Sluis, has identified the earliest known candidate aurora in the Chinese bamboo annals, which dates to the 10th century BCE and predates previously identified examples by 3 centuries. Okay, चलिए इस sentence को break करके पढ़ते हैं. So what they are saying is कि जो Hayakawa है, he is now working with another researcher, Marinus Anthony. Okay, and they have identified earliest known candidate aurora. ठीक है, so they have identified the description of earliest known aurora in चाइनीज बैम्बू एनल्स. एनल्स क्या होते हैं? एनुअल वाला यहाँ पे रूट लग रहा है आपको. सो दिस इज सेम. एनल्स आर बेसिकली ईयरली जो रिकॉर्ड्स बनाए जाते हैं, समथिंग रिटन एनुअली. ओके, और ये 10th century BCE का है बेसिकली. ओके, और ये सबसे अर्ली रिकॉर्ड है हमारे पास. जो अभी तक के रिकॉर्ड्स थे उससे भी 3 centuries पुराना रिकॉर्ड मिल गया है. ओके, so the data recorded by historical observers is crucial to building a more accurate understanding of the solar cycle. Again, now यहाँ पे दो चीजें note करें. One is recorded. Now here this is used as a verb, so we will use recorded. Okay, pronunciation will be recorded, and this is crucial to, ये grammatical structure note करिए, building a more accurate understanding of the solar cycle. So something is crucial to, verb plus ing form. It is crucial to developing, it is crucial to gaining. Okay, right. Using this data to create models of future activity may aid in predictions, but as Matthews argues, we still need more robust preparations to protect our electronic infrastructure should one of these massive storms reach Earth again. कि अगर हमें अपने आप को प्रिपेयर करना है इन केस ऐसा कोई स्टॉर्म फ्यूचर में हिट करता है अर्थ को, सो वी नीड रोबस्ट प्रिपरेशंस, ओके, टू सेव आवर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक. Note this grammatical structure: should, something, verb first form. Should he come again? Should they call again? Should, ठीक है. So this is another grammar structure. In the meantime, historical observations unearthed by researchers including Hayakawa and Tamazawa will help us understand what the sun is doing in the long term. So अगर हम इसे ध्यान से पढ़ते रहें about auroras and historical, accounts of this, then we'll get to know behavior of sun in the long term. According to Leif Svalgaard, a solar physicist at Stanford University. So that is what Leif Svalgaard feels. As always, the past is the key to the present and future, he writes in an email. So this is what Leif says. ठीक है, that we need to understand past in order to understand present and future. We need to know if what we observe now is unusual or just the sun doing its thing. तो हमें धीरे धीरे डेटा कलेक्ट करके ये जानना है कि इज इट समथिंग अनयूजुअल दीज सोलर स्टॉर्म्स, क्या ये कुछ डिफरेंट है या ये हिस्ट्री में भी कॉमन थे. Is it just sun doing its thing? Means it's just sun's normal behavior. Okay. So that was the end of this article, right? I hope you learned something new today. These articles are basically, to help you develop your interest in a subject. Now, this was more about science and history and, auroras, nature in general. So, this is how I'm going to bring you articles every week. Okay, this week's theme is going to be science, right? We'll study more articles. read before the session so that in the session you are prepared what you need to understand. Okay, so that was it from me today. Bye bye. I'll see you in the next session.